In this lesson, I'm going to be going over how to effectively study for finance classes. Now, a little disclaimer before I get into how to do that. I was someone who never, ever enjoyed studying for any class in college, but you have to study in order to pass the class. That's important, and also to understand exactly what you're learning, right? So this is coming from someone who didn't enjoy studying, but I did find ways where I was able to study and pass the classes and actually learn the material. Now, the first one is going to be attend classes and actually participate, right? It's easier said than done, right? In college, it's easy to not go to class because no one's going to force you to go to class, right? No one is going to come wake you up and say, hey, you need to go to class. No one is going to do that for you. So you have to go to class, especially those, actual finance classes like, corporate finance, maybe international finance, accounting, accounting for finance majors, economics. Those are classes you need to attend, okay? Simply because some of the professors that are teaching those classes are retired CFOs, CEOs, executives, right? So they know what they're talking about. You have to actively participate as well. If you're in class, sitting there, sometimes you get bored, especially if it's in a class. If it's a class that's an hour long, you're going to be sitting there tired, zoning out. Actively participate, okay? And actively participating also means going to your professor's office hours where you can ask questions of things that you learned in class. So you have to attend the classes and actively participate. That is how you get the most out of going to class. Now, the next one is going to be forming study groups, right? I was a person that did not like to study. But when I got with the study group, I was able to pick, different ways of looking at information from the different people in those study groups. Now, if we were looking at a problem and my approach was just approach the problem directly and I wasn't finding answers, someone else found a way. They used a different approach to solving that problem and I would adopt their way of solving that problem. So study groups are going to help you a lot, right? Instead of only learning from the professor, you might be learning from someone who learned it somewhere, who has a better way who's going to help you better understand. And also, if you are studying with, your study group, you can ask questions that might be stupid, questions that you might not want to ask in class, even though there's never any stupid question, but you are more comfortable talking to your study group instead of a class with maybe, 100 people or 50 people, right? So study groups are something that really helped me because I was able to gain a lot of perspectives or a lot of approaches to what I was studying. Now, the next one is going to be utilizing resources. Now, we have a lot of resources that are going to teach you finance. We have Udemy, where you're watching this course, right? You have to be able to, use this resource. And even YouTube, you can use YouTube if you're learning a subject in finance. Let's say you're learning about risk and return, right? Before class starts, why don't you open a YouTube video that talks about risk and return to just get an overview of what that is. By the time you go to class, you have questions already, right? So let's say the video didn't fully cover what risk is. Now, when the professor is teaching and he says, does anyone have any questions? Now you can actually ask questions, because what happens is if you don't study prior to the class, or maybe you watch a YouTube video or whatever you might do, as you learn the information in class, you're not going to have any questions simply because you're still processing what you just learned, right? Sometimes it's hard to learn something and have questions right away. So if you watch a video or read a book from online, a day before or a couple hours before class, and when the professor teaches the same thing, it's just reinforcing what you learned, and you are going to have questions. Now you're actually going to be able to ask questions. So utilize all the resources you can. If your college provides a tutor that's going to teach you something you're learning in class, do it. Whether the resource is a study group, use it. Whether the resource is YouTube, Udemy, there are so many resources you can use in order to prepare for class, in order to even just reinforce your learning, things you're learning. You can even use the resources after class. Let's say the professor talked about return on investments, right? Now you can, after class, you can go ahead and look up a YouTube video or find a course on Udemy and reinforce what the professor taught you, because sometimes they're not always clear. Sometimes you might not always fully understand what they're saying and what they're trying to teach. But on your free time, you can utilize resources that we have in this day and age to reinforce your learning. Now, the last part is actually what really, really helped me, solving case studies. So, whatever class you're in, let's say you're in risk management class, you can look up some, go ahead and open up Google, search for finance risk management case studies with solutions. You can find a case study and you can work on this with a group, right? Like a study group. And once you guys finish, you can go ahead and look at the solution. And these really help to provide real life problems, and it teaches you how to solve those problems. So what I used to do when I was in college, me and my study group would find these case studies, right, and then we'll try to solve the case studies. And it would take us a couple hours. It'd be on a Saturday morning, and after that was completed, we would look at the solution. And after that, on Monday, we would actually go to the professors. It was corporate finance, our professor's office hours, and we would present him the case study, and we would just ask for his insights, right? Instead of just looking at the solution that was provided on the internet, would also ask our professor, because the way he might explain things might be easier to digest than some information on the internet. So case studies are going to help you. They're going to give you real life examples, and some of these case studies are actually based on real life events that happen in finance, right? So you can find these online, and I recommend working on these with a group, not by yourself, simply because when you're with a group, you're able to bounce ideas, bounce different approaches to problem, and you're gonna learn so much from other people. So those were the four effective ways to study for finance. If you notice, these are pretty general. They're not tailored to me or a specific person. That's because everyone has a different way to study. Some people study on their own. Some people can study for hours and hours. Some people can only study for 30 minutes. Some can study for an hour, simply because of different schedules, just different mindsets. But these can be implemented by everyone. Like I said before, attend your class and actively participate in class. Anyone can do that. Form study groups. You have to do that. Sometimes the classes will even force you to have a study group at the beginning of the semester, and you're stuck with that the entire semester. Utilize your resources. Use all your resources. YouTube, Udemy, all these resources. Use all of them. If you're learning how to use Excel in class, Microsoft Excel, go ahead and go on YouTube, on Udemy, get a course on how to do that, right? Now, solve case studies. These are going to help you understand what actually happens in the real world of finance, right? And when you solve it, go to someone else, like a professor, and ask for their insights, because the way they explain it is probably more digestible than you trying to read it, to read and understand it on your own. So that is pretty much it when it comes to effective ways to study for finance classes. I'll see you guys on the next lesson.